Not all who run return home the same. These real stories prove evil doesn't always hide in the dark. Sometimes it waits by the roadside. I wouldn't call myself super athletic, but I do like going for runs and working out here and there, just enough to stay in okay shape. My buddy Jay and I usually do this together. He's always been in great condition and kind of acts like my personal trainer sometimes. We used to go running late at night around my neighborhood because most of the streets are well lit and the area is pretty safe. But we stopped doing that about 2 months ago after what happened. Let me explain how my neighborhood is laid out. There's one main road, and from it, several side roads branch off. Eventually, they all lead back to the main road, which stretches out into a dirt path that runs past local farms and larger properties. That layout matters for what we experienced. One night, Jay and I started a run from my place, taking a wooded trail that connects to one of the side roads. The plan was to use that side road to loop back to the main road, head toward the dirt path, and finally return home using the main route. I know that sounds complicated, but we took this path to increase our mileage. Our usual route was getting too easy. We began running like usual, chatting about school drama. But soon, we started hearing footsteps behind us. At first, we didn't think anything of it. That trail is often used by other runners or people cutting through the neighborhood. But the steps didn't go away. They matched our pace exactly. If we sped up, they did too. When we slowed down, they also slowed. Jay and I were both uneasy by then. Just as we were about to reach a street with lights, we turned off the path and checked behind us, but no one was there. We looked at each other, a little creeped out, but figured maybe it was just someone keeping their distance. We kept going, taking the side road to the main road, and then followed it out to the dirt path. We were still feeling good, so we went further. But unlike the neighborhood, the dirt road had no lights and was flanked by thick trees. It felt eerie in the dark. We ran about a mile before deciding to turn around. As we turned back, I noticed something, a dark shape quickly slipping into the trees on the left side of the path. It made me think of those earlier footsteps, and I started to feel really uncomfortable. I told Jay what I saw, but he brushed it off, saying I was imagining things from fatigue. I almost believed him. We kept running and passed the spot where I'd seen the figure. But then we heard movement in the woods, about 20 feet behind us. We turned and saw someone standing in the middle of the dirt road facing away from us. They were wearing a black hoodie, torn and filthy khaki pants, and dark shoes. My heart was pounding. Jay started to say something. "What the hell are you doing?" but stopped when we heard the person laugh. It wasn't normal. It was this horrible, high-pitched cackling that made my skin crawl. The figure turned around while still laughing, then abruptly stopped. Now he was just staring at us with a dead-eyed glare. I'll never forget that face. Pale, wide-eyed, just wrong. Jay and I didn't say a word. We just looked at each other and bolted. We ran harder than we ever had, sprinting the entire 2 miles back to my house. Even as we ran, we heard that terrible laugh again behind us, pushing us to run even faster. When we finally got back, I threw up in the yard and ran inside, locking every door and shutting the garage. We sat in shock, trying to make sense of what just happened. Since then, we've never run in my neighborhood at night. If you like late-night runs, stay in well-lit areas and bring a friend, just in case. As a high school junior, I ran cross-country and track. I wasn't the fastest, but I had solid endurance and loved getting lost in the rhythm of running solo. A woman who lived in a quiet rural neighborhood near a forest preserve hired me to help tire out her overly energetic puppy, Izzy. She offered me $10 per run, which felt like a pretty sweet deal. Izzy got her exercise, and I got paid while training. The area was mostly scattered houses, old farms, a graveyard, and what was left of a disbanded cult compound. My parents always warned me about jogging in remote spots alone, but I figured I was quick enough to outrun anything. That confidence disappeared one evening. Just before sunset, I took Izzy out for a longer jog. The trees were glowing orange from the last bit of daylight, but long shadows stretched over the road, making everything feel darker than it was. The only sounds were my breathing, Izzy's panting, and the repetitive thud of sneakers on pavement. Occasionally, a bird would flap away or a dog barked in the distance, but it was mostly silence. The deeper we went, the quieter everything became. It felt like the world was gradually muting itself. About 2 miles in, we reached a stretch of road bordered by thick forest. That's when Izzy froze. Her ears went up and she stared straight into the trees, completely still. A low whine escaped her. I followed her gaze, seeing only trees at first, just gently swaying branches. But then, tucked between two trunks, a man's face appeared. He was short, maybe mid-30s, wearing a cap pulled low, a heavy jacket not suited for the warm weather, and gloves. His eyes locked onto mine. He didn't blink. I tried to convince myself he was just a hiker or someone passing through. But the way he stood, half hidden and silently watching, made my skin crawl. He didn't feel like someone who was just there. He felt wrong. I gave a quick nod and continued jogging, pretending not to be shaken. My heart beat faster, not from exertion, but fear. A few steps later, Izzy stopped again. Tail tucked, frozen in place. I turned. He was closer. No longer in the woods, he now stood right at the edge of the road, just a few feet away. His head tilted ever so slightly, studying me. And that's when I realized. He wanted me to see that he'd moved. He wanted me to know he was getting closer. A chill ran down my back. I was on edge, ready to sprint, but held myself together. Maybe he was just a creep looking to scare someone. If I ignored him, maybe he'd leave. I kept running, glancing over my shoulder every few strides. At first, nothing. Then, movement in the corner of my eye. I turned, and there he was, running at me full speed, a butcher cleaver in his hand. The scream never fully left my throat. Panic surged through me, and I just ran. Harder than I ever had. Adrenaline surged like lightning. I gasped for breath, Izzy scrambling beside me, her leash yanking in my grip. It was a fear I'd never felt before, the kind that goes bone deep, the kind that whispers, "You'll die if you slow down." I glanced back once. He was still coming. His face was contorted in rage, mouth open like a growl, cleaver flashing in the fading light. But he wasn't running normally. His limbs flailed in jerky, unnatural ways. His legs pumped too fast, like he wasn't used to using them. Then I noticed he wasn't breathing. I could hear my gasps, Izzy's panting, the trees rustling. But not him. No breathing. Only the pounding of his boots. I reached the edge of a neighborhood, darted between houses, zigzagged through yards. My vision blurred. My legs burned. But I couldn't stop. Finally, I ducked behind a shed with Izzy. I collapsed against the wooden wall, panting, shaking. Silence. I slowly turned my head. There he was, standing at the top of the hill, watching. The cleaver hung from his hand. His chest moved like he had just run too, but he wasn't chasing anymore, just staring. Our eyes met. His face was blank now. No emotion, just emptiness. A minute passed, then another. Headlights appeared on the road. And just like that, he turned and walked into the woods. Calm, quiet, gone. I didn't move for a long time. When I finally did, I took the longest, most hidden route back to the woman's house. I took the money like nothing had happened. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell my parents. I knew they'd never let me run alone again. I still don't know who he was. A member of the old cult? A drifter? Something worse? But one thing's for sure. I never ran that route again. This story spans nearly 7 years, so I'll try to be as concise and direct as I can. I live in a suburban neighborhood bordered by open countryside. The area is surrounded by fields and winding rural roads, and it's virtually impossible to get anywhere without a car. While the scenery is beautiful, the isolation can feel suffocating, something that only worsened during the pandemic. The first strange thing I remember happened when I was 9. My younger brother, who was 7, and I were walking our dogs near the entrance to our street. We were chatting, not really paying attention, when a voice called out, "Hey, come here." A white SUV was parked at the beginning of the road, and a man leaned out the window, motioning for us to come closer. He was a tall white man with curly blonde hair. My brother began to approach him, but I stopped him. Even at that age, I was cautious and had heard enough stories about children being taken by strangers in vans. I led us back toward the house, all the while keeping my eyes on the SUV. When the man saw we were leaving, he turned the vehicle around and drove away. I told my mom about it, but she brushed it off, saying he probably just needed directions. At the time, I was shaken, but didn't think about it much until now. A year later, during Halloween 2014, something else happened. A black sedan was seen slowly trailing trick-or-treaters. When a parent tried to approach the car, it accelerated and nearly hit them before speeding off. Strangely, its license plates had been removed. I didn't witness this myself, but it stirred a lot of concern among adults in the neighborhood, and I got another "don't talk to strangers" talk. This kind of fear was especially common then, as the local community was still reeling from the recent murder of Hannah Graham. Jump to the summer of 2018. Some neighbors were away and asked me to look after their dog. I had to check in 3 times a day, in the morning, afternoon, and night. Their house was just off the main road to the right of our neighborhood. I could either take the road or cut through a wooded area that led directly to their backyard. Although the shortcut was quicker, the woods were thick, so I typically stuck to the road. One night, after losing track of time while gaming, I remembered I hadn't let the dog out. It was past 10 p.m. I grabbed a flashlight and rushed over. It was completely dark, with only the stars and my flashlight to guide me. Thankfully, the dog hadn't had an accident. I let him out, waited, and brought him back in. Just as I was about to leave, I noticed a black sedan parked beside the driveway. I was almost certain it hadn't been there when I arrived. With no nearby houses and the owners out of town, it made me uneasy. After a few minutes of deliberation, I decided to head home through the woods. I made it back safely and used the forest route for the remainder of their trip, never spotting the car again. Now, these incidents alone might not have meant much, but something more recent happened that made me revisit them all and realize they might be connected. I run track at school, and since COVID had shut down practices, I began running solo through the nearby roads. My street is short, so I usually jog onto the main road and nearby routes. Everything was fine for the first few months. I ran for about an hour each day, enjoying the peaceful countryside. But about a month ago, I noticed a car seemed to be shadowing me. I always run against traffic for safety, so I could see vehicles coming. On one particular run, a white SUV was driving on the opposite side of the road at my jogging pace. This was strange. Cars rarely cruise that slowly here. I took a side street that ended in a cul-de-sac, and the SUV didn't follow. But the next day, it appeared again. This time, it was parked in a driveway, and pulled out just as I passed. It followed me for about a mile before I turned down the same side road, at which point it left. This happened for 10 days straight. At first, I wondered if it was just someone on a routine schedule, but I tested that theory by running an hour later one day. The SUV didn't appear. The day after, I returned to my usual time, and it was back, trailing me again. I considered telling my parents, but I feared they'd stop me from running altogether. Besides, the driver hadn't done anything yet. I figured I'd stay vigilant and deal with it. On the 11th day, I took my usual detour only to see a black sedan parked at the end of the street. I initially thought nothing of it. It could belong to a resident. But as I got closer, I saw something disturbing. The faint outline of a person lying underneath the car, carefully hidden on the far side. My stomach dropped. I turned and bolted in the opposite direction. Then I saw the white SUV parked at the entrance of the road, blocking my escape. Panic surged. I decided I'd rather face what I knew than what I didn't, and I sprinted toward the SUV. As I got close, a man jumped out and chased after me. Thankfully, my training paid off. I outran him easily. He yelled something like, "I just want to talk," but I didn't look back. I ran the remaining mile home as fast as I could. Once home, I told my mom everything. She immediately contacted the police, but without a license plate, there was little they could do. They said they'd investigate, but I haven't heard anything since. These events have been consuming my thoughts. Looking back, I believe these people have been trying for years to abduct a child from our street. There are plenty of kids in the neighborhood which would explain their persistence. What scares me most is thinking about someone less cautious ending up in the same situation and not getting away. I still have nightmares about the man who chased me. He was tall, with curly blonde hair, the same man who tried to lure me into his car when I was just 9.